This is the bonus reel, and I am absolutely amazed, and not in a good way, of where things are heading. I'm seeing a lot of hypocrisy. Lies are being exposed. I'm seeing lawlessness to a degree that in 60, almost 63 years, I have never seen in this country. Yes, I am a child of the 60s, the early 60s. We were the baby boomers. We lived through the summer of love. Uh, we were here when the drugs were starting to move about even more freely because it was all about free love and individuality. At the same time, we had two wars going on in Korea and Vietnam. Um, we've seen a lot of things. We saw the Watergate scandal in the presidential election, which cost Richard Nixon his presidency. We saw Spiro Agnew literally take a bribe across his desk, which they allowed him to resign as opposed to being impeached and convicted in the Senate. And Richard Nixon, too, would face a similar fate when he found out, after he tried to fire everybody, when he found that he didn't have the votes to stay in, he resigned. However, his vice president, who took over the office when Nixon vacated, pardoned him. Well, I kind of understand the fact that he was doing his friend and his party mate and his predecessor a solid on that level. But he really made an error because a precedent could have been established then, and rightly so. Richard Nixon broke the law. And in more ways than one. In more ways than one. Did you know that it was Nixon during the 1968 election that went behind the efforts of LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, went behind his back and was dealing with Vietnam. And he was trying to keep the war going until he got into office. And he did that with Korea as well. And if that sounds familiar, it's probably because Ronald Reagan did the same thing in the 1980 election against Jimmy Carter. Wasn't it amazing that moments after Reagan was sworn in, the hostages were released? It wasn't because the Iranians hated Jimmy Carter. It's because they had a deal. That deal became known as the Iran-Contras. Drugs for guns. We were trading guns for drugs from South America, and we were funding Iran. That was under Ronald Reagan. You might have heard the name General Manuel Noriega. That was the connection in South America. Well, Republican criminality still exists. The special section in the Texas legislature came to an end, and they didn't have a chance to gerrymander in that one. But now it's too late because Gavin Newsom said, you know what? You didn't stand down, so I'm going to take it to the people in November, and we're going to take 5 seats from you. Meanwhile, some of the Texas Democrats came home, and in the most childish, humiliating thing for a lawmaker to have to go through, they actually had to sign a permission slip to go home and that they would be under DPS authority. DPS is the Texas Department of Public Safety, or the Texas State Police. We can call them that. One, by the name of Nicole Collier, did not do that. And right now she's being held hostage going on 3 days in the Texas Capitol. 3 days. Because Donald Trump told the soft, weak, bitter Greg Abbott that he wants 5 more congressional seats, and he picks Texas because he knows Texas is the most lawless, corrupt state in the union. Yeah, you might have thought it would be Texas or California, maybe even Maryland, but it's Texas. I can tell you that. I lived there. I saw it firsthand. I remember going with a friend of mine once to take her to vote. And the worker, she didn't, my friend didn't know about computers. The worker, the elections worker, went to the computer and made it look like an accident, but she tapped the button, vote all Republican. But my friend saw it and she hollered it out. She brought attention to it. And we filed a claim with the Commissioner of Elections against that. That's how crooked they are. They will cheat to win. I truly believe that Beto O'Rourke got cheated in Texas. But this is Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump trying to take control of everything, trying to exceed the limits of executive power by throwing everything he can at the wall to see if it sticks or what'll stick in the long term. But here's the rub. Donald Trump is a constitutionally disqualified executive. He should, and his presidency should be nullified, everything he's done, because it is illegal. And no, I'm not a podcaster talking out the crack of my ass. I'm a constitutional scholar. I study the law, and my profession is the law. 30 years of law enforcement, and now working towards as a independent paralegal, and working my way towards attorney and judge. So yeah, I know a little something, a little bit more than the average person maybe, even though I'm still an average American. Let's not get that twisted. But the reason I'm saying this is because that you need to know, because there are too many lies. Did you not know that Trump has followed the example of Putin, as he did with the mail-in ballots? He's taken control of the media, and he did it this way. He threatened to sue everybody that didn't do what he wanted. If you say anything that makes me look bad, I'm going to sue you. That's what he did. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or about it. Ask CBS. Ask Fox. Ask Paramount. How about the law firms? Really? You're an executive and you're gonna go against the law firms. He's got such a supposed hatred for Democrats. He's divided this country because everybody's not a Republican and everybody isn't going to be a Republican, and everybody doesn't want to be a Republican. Right now, Republicans are speaking out against Donald Trump. Republicans. Maybe you've heard of a group called the Lincoln Project. They were all big Republicans. And still are. Liz Cheney is still a Republican. How could she be anything but? Her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, Republican, was on the ticket twice with George W. Bush. But that's just part of it. The unleashing, the attempted takeover of the D.C. Metro Police Department, which squarely violates the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. And the judge saw it. And they had to walk that right back. They can't take over a municipal police department. And right now we're waiting for word from Judge Charles Breyer, who is incidentally the brother of Clinton appointee to the Supreme Court, Stephen Breyer, who already said that the government's arguments in the case sounds iffy. The bottom line is that Trump violated the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 by putting troops in Los Angeles to perform law enforcement duties. And now he's doubling down because he believes his shit don't stink. And he's bringing troops from all the red states to Washington, D.C. to do the same damn thing. But what's going to happen is this. When Judge Breyer ultimately rules, and I believe he's going to rule that Trump did violate Posse Comitatus, it's clear as a bell, then that's going to be the blueprint for D.C. and any other further type of move that Trump does. And here's the punchline. Yes, the Constitution says Trump is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, of the military. But here's the rub. The military does not have to follow in a legal order. And if a judge says you violated Posse Comitatus, you can't be here, the military is not going to stay there. Even if Trump says, I don't care what the courts say, stay. Business as usual. They're not going to do it. They're smarter than that. Hedgeseth may not be smarter than that because he's probably not sober. But the guys in the field, the commanders, they are. They're going to back away. And that will be the end of Trump's plans to militarize our streets. Meanwhile, there's still one little unresolved issue. Because on Monday, July 18th, the time frame was up for the DOJ to produce to the House committee the Epstein files. This is the one thing that hasn't and should not go away, because I think the people need to know if their elected leader is a pedophile or assisted in the trafficking of children. There's a reason. Let me tell you something. And I think you, the viewer, would probably agree with me. If I accused you of doing something that you didn't do, you sure as hell would want to prove to the world that it's a lie and you didn't do it, wouldn't you? Honest men will bring the receipts and show that they're innocent. But Trump hides everything. He tried to hide his grades from college, but it got out. 1.28 GPA. So much for a stable genius. 1.28. How about his tax returns? Remember, he hid those for 5 years. Then we found out he only paid $750 over 2 years or 4 years. I think it was 2 years. He hides, are you serious? I can look at that man and tell you he's not 6'3", 225 pounds, or 215 pounds, excuse me. It's more like the reverse. He's about 5'9", 5'10", and about 360 pounds. He won't release his medical records. He won't let us see what happened. He wants to live this miracle like he's the golden child, how his ear grew back after getting shot in Butler. Well, for those of us, especially you military guys, who should know about 3.62 NATO rounds or 5.50 NATO rounds, okay? You know what kind of damage they do when they hit bone. You also know about blood spatter. If you got winged this way, blood spatter isn't going this way. It's going back. And it's also going to take a little bit of skull, too. The media has been compromised. You're getting bottle-fed garbage, plain and simple. And you have a tyrant in the making. I'll say it again. Tyrant in the making. A dictator. A guy who thinks people like Viktor Orban, Bibi Netanyahu, and Vladimir Putin are swell guys. It's got to stop, folks. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. And What we need right now is Democrats and independents who are tired of seeing the country that people fought 250 years ago for to establish. People who have fought in the armed forces to sustain the freedoms that we have right now. To honor their memories, we need Democrats and independents to stand up to this Nazi ass regime, stand up and take action. And yes, I know I love Michelle Obama too. I do. She said, when they go low, we go high. Well, that's a great sentiment. But you know what? It doesn't work with people who are morally compromised. That ship has sailed. The days of strongly worded letters are over. It's time to meet fire with fire. It's what the people want you to do. Get out there and do it. And don't worry about money and all that, because the people will support you. They're doing it. Think back to Barack Obama. Barack Obama got across the line twice from grassroots fundraising, not from billionaire Jews. Oh, am I being prejudiced? What about Sheldon Adelson, who every year, the late Sheldon Adelson, who for years hosted what they called the Sheldons, where all the up-and-coming political stars came to try to get money from Sheldon Adelson by putting their platform on a line. And if it aligned with his, which was a lousy thing, Trump got money from him. And as a matter of fact, Trump rewarded his wife by giving her a Medal of Freedom for absolutely nothing, but giving him money. That sounds fishy, doesn't it? Or how about Charles Koch of Koch Industries, who has been channeling money for years to destroy the Supreme Court? Or how about Leonard Leo of the Heritage Society, who basically handpicked the current Supreme Court for Trump? No, I'm not being racist. I'm telling you what the facts are. Democrats, independents, rise up, stand up, take it to the gutters. You don't bring knives to gunfights. Get this done and smash these people back so we have a country still standing by 2028. End of story. This is all important. It has to be done. This is the bonus reel. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.